Welcome back, everybody. One of America's sweethearts shook headlines this week when she announced that she has mental health issues after dealing with the body shaming as a Disney Channel's kid in the 2000s. Raven-Symoné says she wishes she'd grown up in today's society more because of the body image era that she grew up in. She said, quote, "I wish I was living now as a younger person. I probably wouldn't have so many mental issues rather. She revealed she was body shamed throughout her childhood while she was on the set of her shows backstage and during her concerts. A lot of people are applauding her for speaking out now, so I don't know. What do you ladies think about this? I don't know if I'm on board with her blaming Disney and blaming everyone else for all of the issues that she encountered. I don't know. What do you think?
Well, I think the conversation needs to be had about the impact of any sort of negative communication with young folks. So we talk a lot about bullying and the impact of bullying and the consequences of a poor body image or poor self-image, be it related to body or otherwise, the impact that has on a child's development. So from my perspective, I think how we interact with children really has to be considered very, very carefully because it can have these long-lasting impacts. And when you talk about someone who is at risk of mental health disorders, which is inherited to some extent, but usually triggered by circumstances and stressors and that sort of thing, you can precipitate conditions. You can precipitate events.
So something like her saying that whenever she was on set, they call it, I think it's Crafty, is the place that they go to and they're able to get any kind of food, any craft services. They call it Crafty as children. Yep. And so they can go anytime, anywhere to get any kind of sodas or bagels. And she said that
we have that here all the time.
Yeah, I wish. Oh my gosh, that would be great.
It's called the break room.
Yeah, no,
Put
not
your
so
money
much.
in the vending machine, boo.
But she said that adults were saying to her that you shouldn't eat that bagel. So an adult saying that, is that really impacting her at that age, at age 7, and saying, oh, well, I shouldn't eat a bagel, I'm going to get fat? Is that really impacting her as an adult later in life, or is that something that adults really shouldn't guide her?
Well, I think that it can certainly increase your tendency to have a poor image. So an adult who chose to correct her for anything and did so in a negative way, I think it can have the same risk. I also think that when you're talking about a 7-year-old who wants to eat something, right, 7-year-olds don't control their appetite. Right, and so a child being in a setting where there's unlimited choices that someone then has to step in and regulate is probably the original problem, right? So a lot of what we talk about in terms of creating healthy behaviors and healthy habits in terms of eating and that sort of thing happen based on what's available to you and how you learn to make those choices. And so it probably wasn't a very conducive environment for balance anyway.
There's a lot to be said about this talker. Number one, I'm not sure if she's blaming Disney for this, but that's probably the biggest show that everyone knows her from, and we can relate to that with her. However, I also think that as a child, any child growing up, whether they are on Disney or on Moncrief, it does not matter. I think that when you're growing up, it is the parents' responsibility to reassure that child, you're beautiful, I love you, whatever it is you want to instill in that child, so that if he or she is ever in a situation where some grown adult who it's not their child and they're making an inappropriate comment to your child, then that child is going to still know, but I'm beautiful and my mom still loves me, or those types of comments will not affect them as much if they know that they had reassurance growing up from their parents. And also, I think it goes to, as a child growing up, your family teaching you the right and wrong things to eat. Now, as you said, children cannot control their emotions. I mean, there are some people, grown-ups, who can't control what they eat because of their emotions. But I think as a 7-year-old, she was doing what most 7-year-olds do. She's going to eat whatever makes her happy. Absolutely. I still do that today. I'm going to eat whatever makes me happy because, when that time comes, I won't be in heaven saying, I wish I would have had that bagel. But anyway, I just think that a lot of it has to do with growing up as a child and having your parents or your family, your friends to kind of reassure you. And And I know it's easier said than done. I know it's easier said than done. And I've never been bullied, and I've never had to deal with those body shaming issues. Or if I did, I guess I didn't realize what they were, because I told the person how I felt. Even to this day, I tell them how I feel and keep it moving. Nobody is perfect. We all have flaws. We all have issues, whether you're 300 pounds or 120 pounds. You're going to find something wrong with yourself in some kind of way. You deal with it the best way you can. You handle what God gave you, and you move on.
Yeah, and going back to the Disney piece, she's not the first child actor to say that they were asked to lose weight or gain weight. She even referenced that. I mean, Tracy Gold, I think, from Growing Pains, showing my age, going back to that. Candace Cameron Bure from Full House went through the same thing. And so I think that's a whole other conversation in terms of how Hollywood not only treats actors and actresses, but now you look at how they handle children. And talking about the bullying thing, and my daughter is okay with me saying this, my oldest daughter has had a weight issue her entire life. And in fact, this morning I found a letter I had sent to her school 10 years ago. She's 21 now. Wow. But it was an email I had sent to her school about some bullying over a little boy was bullying her. And it broke my heart all over again. Wow. She had to go through it, and I showed it to her this morning, and of course it broke her heart again, but it's something she's been dealing with her entire life. So whether you work for Disney or you go to your local, you can go to school, it happens, and it's something I'm certainly very conscious of, and hope that more people be conscious of it, because as you said, we're born this way. I have 2 other children who don't have those weight issues, and in fact, her pediatrician said to me, I'll never forget it, he said, well, what are you feeding her? And I said, the same thing I'm feeding the other 2.
Right. They can be a little insensitive at times,
and that's a whole other topic, because it was.
Yes, they can be very, whether they're little kids or grown adults. Doctor, what's wrong with y'all?
So there are these measures we have to meet in terms of being sure that we've addressed nutritional issues, weight issues, and so for physicians, it's about reducing risk. And when you talk about what we find is, just like with smoking and other bad behaviors, if your physician says something to you about it, you are more likely then to take an action to correct it. So there is pressure on a physician to actually make those comments, introduce that topic, and bring it up in conversation. One of the things you said I think is very, very important that we shouldn't miss in this, and that is that Raven-Symoné stepped out to say this has happened to me, and I have mental health issues as a result, is huge.
Big.
And the end result, I hope, is that there are young women all across the world now who have heard this, and this is one more example of someone who's prominent, who they probably looked up to at some point, who has stood up and been honest about her mental health issues and the fact that she was bullied, and it's not okay.
Mental health is a serious thing that we don't, that it's not addressed enough, that a lot of people have not come to grips with to handle it.
Right. I applaud her for that.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So Raven-Symoné coming out and saying that, I mean, you know, it's gonna open up some minds to some people thinking so, for sure. All right, well, coming up next, author and voice coach to the stars like Whitney Houston, Paula Abdul, and Lenny Kravitz. We talk with Gary Katona when we come back.